Hey, Mushka.
Hey Nathan.
Hey, we're excited to be here. There's a couple questions you've been asking me over the last few weeks, and we're going to dive into this. And we decided we'd do this podcast style. Do you have any thoughts before we get rolling on this today?
I think we should just get started. I have so many questions and then we don't want to run out of time.
And just so everybody knows, I'm going to tell a little bit about my backstory, Mushka. You had a couple questions as we've worked with different businesses.
Yeah.
And in my mind, one of the big things that we're talking about now is business DNA. And I think
Yeah.
we'll just kind of leave it at that. And let's get rolling.
Okay. So Nathan, you told me something that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. You said that you worked at a company and you took that company from 10 million to almost 30 million in 3 years after being stuck at 10 million for 14 years. And it was like the same team, the same offer, the same market. What changed? Like, what's the story? I want to know that.
We'll get into this here. The story, the only thing that changed is what I like to refer to, and it's one thing we've been talking about quite a bit lately, is I call it business DNA. And I finally figured it out. I decoded the DNA, I upgraded it. And when I did so in that particular business, and when we do this for other businesses, everything else shifted. And it went from working, 70 hours a week, being the only one that seemed like I knew what was going on with my teams, always feeling like you're at the front of that. Like, no matter what, you are the one that everything kind of waits on, right? Like, there's this,
Yeah.
and, at the end of the day, I had to step back and ask myself, you know, why does this need to be me? Why am I missing so many different family events? If you think about, I mentioned the hours and the time, and I didn't want to miss. This simple one was another Halloween with my kids again. So it's one of those things. And so we were able to go from 10 million to 30 million in less than 3 years. Same team, to your point, same market. And the only thing that changed was actually what I refer to as the business DNA.
Okay, I want to unpack all of that. But first, let's give people a preview of what we are going to cover.
All right, let me maybe say this is what I'm going to share today. So I'm going to show you three parts of business DNA, and I'm going to talk about three distinct pieces and why most business owners, they probably have one of these taken care of. They might have part of another one, but when you don't know that there's these three, then often things are broken in businesses and they don't work the way we want. And I'm going to give you something that I call the 1.5% rule. What is that? And so we're going to dig into that. It's a mathematical reality that really actually reveals what type of customers are your best buyers. You and I, we talk about the best buyers. They're the ones that make you the most money. They're the most profitable. And if we don't know who this is, the rest of the clients actually kind of slowly take away and they kill the business. And the third thing I want to really talk about is giving you a 30-second quick diagnostic, some questions you can ask yourself to figure out which part of your DNA is either missing or is incomplete or potentially gives you the biggest potential when you understand how to decode it.
Okay, so I remember you mentioned this client once. I think her name was Samantha. She had a manufacturing business, and over the last few years, she dropped from 4 million to under 2 million. And after she bought it, right? What happened there?
In short, one of the quick things that we did is when we got involved with her business, just really quick, we were looking at decoding her DNA. And within 8 months, what she was able to do is to move from that right around that 2 million to the 2.3. 6 months later, knowing that she was on track because she knew what those strands were and she knew how to apply those things in her business, she had hit the 2.7 and she's continuously growing as part of that. So I'll tell you exactly what we did. But first, let me explain why businesses like hers get stuck in the first place.
So what did actually go wrong? Because, there's someone who buys a business, do their due diligence, the numbers look good, and 6 months down the road, they're drowning. Like, why?
That's a great question. Think about this. When, when people buy businesses, you get the customers list, you get the revenue or whatever you think the business is performing at. Hopefully you would understand that there's the processes tied to this, right? So you think, great, I bought this business. I got the structure. I have whatever this piece is. Here's the unique thing is you're not actually buying what I refer to as this business DNA. The previous owner, think about this, their positioning, their relationships, their unique instinct. That usually is one of the key things that either they have a passion for or that they know part of this is in their head, right? And they're the ones that have the expertise. They knew by gut instinct which deals would potentially more likely vet out than others. They knew what type of products would work better than others. And so this kind of lives in their mind. And one of these things that happens is when they're gone, and you and I have talked about this, when they walked out the door, this leaves with them. In essence, what's in their head, their instincts leaves with them. So what happens is you inherit a business and you get what you think it looked like. So it looks complete, but what we could call is that genetic code, the DNA, actually doesn't stay with it. And you can read stories and there's books on this that happens quite a bit. And so this is what we were going to refer to as really just part of decoding their DNA. So the DNA of the business, the key parts that held that business together, walked out with that previous owner.
All right. How does that show up day to day? Like, how
Well,
would I know that there is an issue going on, like if I have a business?
yeah, that's a good question. What I'd like to say is there's three ways that this shows itself. So anyone who's listening or sees this, you're going to probably recognize this in some form in a business. The first thing we like to call, I refer to it as message mayhem. And this is if you were to ask any three people on your team, you're probably going to get some varied answer, three different types of answers to this. If you were to ask your customer to explain what it is that you do, and you talk about customer one, customer two, customer three, and to be honest with you, Mushka, a lot of people probably aren't able to consistently state part of what it is that their business does because they've naturally already they provide those services, they create the products, and they're providing the results that they're doing. So first I refer to as message mayhem. The second is a simple one, revenue roller coaster. This is the one thing where we're up big one month, the next month we're not up as high, and what we find is there's no real predictable opportunity. We think we're trying to predict it, or we believe that we're putting everything in place, but we still find that there's this variation to the revenue. And this is also where you're dealing with customers, and we find that the wrong fit or customers that aren't necessarily ideal tend to haggle, and you tend to have to struggle, and it's a price comparison, and it's always best price, and you become kind of a commodity. So the revenue roller coaster is part of that. And the third is just generally with most businesses, there's just so many hats that need to be worn. And even if the business and you're at a size where you feel like you can wear or have less responsibilities, it's still a lot with all the companies these days. If you're a small person, you're a solopreneur, you start off and there's a lot of stress about because you're doing everything. You end up with a few team members, 2, 3, 4, up to 10, and you find that you're now doing probably 3 times to 4 times as many things. And again, you actually haven't been able to do so. And we just refer to this as operational overwhelm. So really, message mayhem is one of the biggest challenges. We talk about the revenue roller coaster, which is the second thing. And at the end, operational overwhelm.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah.
Okay, tell me something about those 14 years, because I'm still stuck at, you taking a business from 10 to 30 millions in 3 years.
Yeah, here's the thing. It is brutal. I lived that truth for a long time, and I know because the last business venture that I had done, it was I always like to say, a lot of us we've been there or we are there now where we think we're better than we are. We think we know what we're needing to do. So I spent 14 years to get a business to $10 million. That was 14 years. A lot of people think, hey, that's great, right? So I did everything that you can think about. You read the books, E-Myth, you look at trying to do better things, tighter operations, you do different things that help talk about leadership. You're looking at what this means to help scale and grow your team. But what you end up doing is you end up working 60 hours, 70 hours, and eventually you just really stop counting because it's just excessive. And it was pretty good, Mushka. We grew, 10% one year, 15% another. We've had some better years that were about 20%. But, what I felt like is it was always becoming a little bit more difficult. So it's like the business you are pushing forward was harder to continue to push forward. And they always refer to this as like you're pushing a boulder up the hill. It's getting steeper and steeper and steeper. And that's what I felt like. I felt like it was continuously taking more, pulling more. And at the end, I don't feel like I was failing, but I would say that I felt like I was stuck and I couldn't really figure out why all the effort, why all the things that we were doing didn't and were not coming together. And you can think about this on your own. Is there somebody across the road who you feel like is half as smart, probably twice as smart as you are, They spend half the time, but yet it just seems like things were so much easier. So that's where I was. I didn't, I did everything you could think you could do in your 60, 70-hour week. But it still felt like I was not doing what I should be doing. And I just felt stuck.
What finally made you realize that something had to change?
This was, think about this. I talked about the 14-year drudge. I didn't really call it a drudge. It wasn't. It was really fun. It was really exciting. But what it was Halloween, October, late in October. My kids were getting their Halloween costumes together. My daughter was going to be a witch. My son had worked on his G.I. Joe costume, loved it, had all of his camo, had a friend that had a bunch of stuff. So he had worked on all this. And, and here's the thing. Where was I? I was not at home. And I knew that this was part of the case. I was at a conference, the same conference legitimately that I had been for the last 14 years. My wife called. Obviously, she was a little bit frustrated, sad as well, not only because I was missing another family event, but because, we had several of these conversations because she was just doing this again alone on her own. And so I missed again another Halloween. And here's something else that, again, you think it's okay as well. My birthday and my daughter's birthday is around the same time. So
Yes.
for the last 12 to 14 years, not only had I missed the Halloween and this experience with my children and my kids. And some of you might say, hey, I love it. Some of you might say we don't celebrate it. It's besides the fact. It's the fact that I just wasn't there with my wife. I wasn't there to help her out. I wasn't there. And by the way, this isn't just this event. You can think about as a business owner and as a key member of a team, this happens even more frequently than this in many other things. But I missed birthdays. So my birthday and my daughter's birthday, and luckily I didn't miss all of those because my daughter's birthday was a day ahead of mine. And sometimes I would be home for those events if not. But again, I had missed those. And here's the bigger thing. The realization hit me as well is that not only am I missing the parts and the pieces with my family, but we had over 50 employees at the time. And I realized that their paychecks depended on me, their mortgages, up and coming Christmas, their kids' Christmas presents. And this is when I realized that I didn't really have, and I wasn't facilitating business in the right way. I had built a challenge. A lot of times people talk about it being put in jail, or you can say this prison around you, because I was indispensable is what a lot of us like to think. Hey, we're the superpower behind the business. And at the end of the day, you just build yourself into a job, a good paying job with a lot of great people you love around you. But that's all I had is part of a job.
So what really shifted?
Well, I decided to stop trying to work harder. I decided to ask myself a different set of questions. And that's true. I like to talk about these days, how curious can you be? And you will know, as I talked about before here earlier, when you talk about things like, hey, I'm one of the smartest people in the room. A lot of people might think that's good. And a lot of people that are truly educated or leaders understand that's a really, really bad thing. And so what I decided to do is to not become the smartest person. So I decided to study what businesses that were truly successful they were doing. So I mentioned earlier, if I saw a gentleman across the road or a woman who was facilitating business and they made it look easy, I decided that I wanted to get into understanding why and what it was that they did that made business easy. So how to get out of the grind of what business, was, how to really understand and I use the term myself is that I became a student of my future self. I decided and understood that I needed to begin to learn the things that I needed to know in order to be able to take and be successful at the level that I wanted to be. And so I became a lover of learning. And I noticed that, when you started looking at these businesses, it wasn't just better systems or even better people. It's that they had something else. It was something underneath everything else they had going on. And this is what we refer to as they had a complete DNA. So they had the three parts. They had what we refer to clarity and exactly what it is that they did. They had expression. So they knew how to express that to their best and their ideal clients. And at the end, their results were a true example of what that means. And so they were fully developed. In essence, these are what we refer to as different strands: clarity, expression, and then the results and the ability to combine those were expressed and connected in such a way that they were successful. So in essence, in short, what I was trying to do is I was trying to run an 8-figure business, but on what we call a 6-figure DNA. So once I upgraded the DNA, the same team, okay, the same market. And within 3 years, what I was able to do is to take that business from 10 million to $30 million and unlock the true potential of the team, of the products, of the services, and ideally even myself from where I was.
Right. So, I was wondering, what had you tried before that actually didn't work?
A good question. Let's just talk about there's three traps that people get stuck in. The first trap is that they think that they need to try to fix their marketing, their websites. What they look to do is, hey, I think we need to run better ads. Hey, maybe we need to rebrand a few things. And if you think about this, we all have tried this off and on. And this is what I did the first 14 years. Hey, I think this is a great idea. I want to learn something small. Let's put it in place, right? And you get a couple bumps. You get a bump in revenue, but what happens is that phase over time. And it's the reason why is because the marketing, I still had a confused message. And so you can't outmarket an unclear message. You can't do that. You can't properly position something. And so what you end up doing is you actually just put a loudspeaker onto whatever that bad message or the off message is. So trap one is to think that you're fixing this by simply doing the more marketing, improving or working on things or trying to amplify what we're already doing. The trap two, the second thing I like to talk about is a lot of people just think, hey, we just need more of everything we're doing. Hey, we need more leads. Let's expand the amount of people we're talking to. Let's cast a slightly wider net in order to do so. But what ends up happening most often, you just end up getting more of the wrong type of leads, the wrong type of customers. And one year, one of the things I just remember, and again, we'll talk about this in more detail a little bit later too, but I felt like you're doing great. We're doing everything that we need to do. We have more people. One of these is even expanding the business. And I wanted to expand this business from just national to international. And that was fine and it was good. But again, it was another one of these potentially wrong customers, wrong time. And it just didn't turn out the way we wanted to. So we ended up with less money per sell than we thought about because we were chasing just the wrong type of customers. Three is a simple one. This is where we try to document everything. We're like, you know what? It's the system that's broken. Let's go ahead and document it. Writing the scripts down, training your teams, trying to explain what you believe is the value. You are making sure that you think this is getting transformed through your people. But what ended up happening still is when my team used the same words and they were trying to do the same things that I felt like I could do, it didn't come across the same. And a lot of you would probably know and understand this. It's like nobody is as good as I am. Now, I'm not stating that's the statement, but somehow there's the magic that you have, and that magic just seems like you can't transfer that. And so what I tried to do, the third thing was really just trying to go through the process of documenting. But what I realized is the magic was not the item that I was able to document. And so then this is what I realized. Great. I had some DNA, but I wasn't putting it together and I wasn't expressing it the right way in order to make everything come together in the best way that it needed to.
That's interesting. Okay, so we talked about the framework, and you've talked about the framework here and there. Tell me about the framework. Tell me about the three strands. And maybe if you have like a video or a picture as
Oh,
well, you could show me that as well.
Good question. Let me see if I can bring this up really quick.
Yeah.
I
I,
do.
I'm so interested in the three strands and like what are those three strands and what are they going to do?
Yeah.
Because like, yeah.
Let's break that out. Let's talk about what these three strands are. Let me just bring up, I have an image here that I like to kind of show. If you think about this, here we end up with our DNA. And every business, by the way, has a version of what this is. Now, the problem is I don't have a great picture, but they might not all, by the way, they might not all be showing the way you'd want to show them. So I just like to kind of show this here as part of your DNA. Here's what we've got. You do have your DNA. And if we can actually break this apart, we end up with three different parts to your DNA, which is very unique. We like to talk about this. And this is what I'm going to share with you right now is the different strands of the DNA that you're talking about. And so we'll go ahead and I'll just break these three strands down so that we can know what they are. The first strand, and if we wanted to think about this, Mushka, is clarity. Okay. And so this is what you do. And I want you to listen to this. The clarity DNA is not just what we do, but it's what you do so exceptionally well. Think about this, so well that nobody else can do it in quite the same way. And when you do so, it legitimately, you can say, makes your customers, your competition irrelevant. Okay. And the challenge is, okay, with part of the clarity that we have that we're trying to define is if we don't have this when it's incomplete, what we refer to is this is where you get that message mayhem. We get where the message feels like it's not connected, it doesn't resonate, and it doesn't have the power that you really want it to have. So that's the first one is we want clarity in DNA. So our clarity DNA, clarity strand. And without it, you end up with broken messaging and everyone's saying a little something different. Prospects and your clients, and everybody gets a little bit confused. Strand 2, which is the second, let me kind of bring that back up here. You can see. So strand 2, we'll just put that in the middle as the green one. What is the strand 2? Strand 2 is what I like to refer to as the expression DNA. So this is who you are providing your ideal services for. And this is not everyone. This is the specific 1.5% of your perfect fit customers. Okay. So this is a unique subset that we'll talk about in a little bit more. But when it's incomplete, this is what allows and kind of causes the revenue roller coaster. And strand 3, again, so I like to think about these as those connecting parts that we have. And that's the part that connects the left and the right half together. This is what we call as part of the results DNA. So this is how the DNA itself gets to be replicated. And this is what happens. And this is how it gets communicated through part of your teams. You and I use the word foundational consistency. So these are the things that start to pull everything together. And it's what we start to do in order to make sure that we talked a little bit about that magic that probably left with the previous owner, or that I might have thought that I had when I was 14 years into this. It's what you have that now allows that to come out so that it now works and it gets shared in marketing. It's what now allows that to get shared in sales. And it's what allows that to be now consistent through the business. And when you don't have this, this is when, like I told you, I felt like I was pushing that boulder up the hill. This is where we end up with a lot of overwhelm in the business. And some of this just, you can consider this as kind of like the operational overwhelm. So those are the three strands that come together that help complete your DNA. And when you have these, growth just feels almost inevitable. It makes it so much easier when even one of these are broken. This is where we find that businesses feel like they can't kind of get past the plateau that they're on. And it's what changes and makes things a little bit more difficult.
That's interesting. Tell me about Samantha. Let's go back to Samantha. What strand was broken in her business?
Yeah, good question. So when she came to me, very successful business entrepreneur woman, manufacturing company. She produced some very unique machines, part of a $4 billion industry at the time.
Oh, wow.
And when she bought the business, probably doing about 4 million in revenue. But when she called me again, like I said, that had dropped to about 2 million. And she had asked me specifically because I had been in the industry for quite some time. She said, "Hey, is it the economy?" And one of the questions she asked is like, is this potentially going to work? Do I need to maybe shut this down? In fact, I have questions like this with businesses many times. They're asking, did I make the right decision? Did I invest? She invested part of her nest egg into this. And I think we might get into that a little bit more here later as well. But it wasn't the product. Okay. The customers that she had loved part of the machines and the things they were doing. It wasn't the market. I understood and knew that the industry and the market was healthy. Again, part of a $4 billion business. There were a couple other groups in this industry doing 12 million, 20 million, and some doing more. So we knew that there was the potential in here. But I asked her team, really what was making part of the difference. And one of the things that we started finding out is that the marketing that she felt like who she was trying to market to, the message that she was trying to market to them, what we found on their website, those things were not brought together. They were a little bit kind of all over the place. And it's not because they hadn't tried. They were trying to talk to their individuals. They just had, again, like we kind of talk about decoding part of their DNA. And so what we found out is there was a little bit of confusion with their buyers. And you can talk about good, better, and best buyers. And you know this, when there's a little bit of some confusion, people tend not to buy. The more questions you create in their minds, then the more solutions you have to try to give them. So we did three things. We helped clarify her position. We helped identify her 1.5% or the best built people. We built a roadmap so that everyone could explain this consistently everywhere. And the same business, the same market, within 12 months, she was back up to about 2.7 million on her way to grow. In fact, I'll just use this last statement here recently. One of her questions and her kind of ahas were, if we're already part of such a big industry, then why have I settled for such a small percentage as a participant in this? And what she realized is that the other people weren't better than who she was. They didn't have better products. And in fact, she has a very, very unique position based on the manufacturing and the history that surrounded this 50 years of history. And so she was very excited to understand that now by decoding this DNA, this allows her to now move forward in a much, much quicker, much faster pace with a lot less struggle, a lot less effort. And, she told me afterwards, she says, I knew that this growth was possible. I just didn't know how to unlock it.
Interesting. You mentioned the 1.5% rule in the beginning. What was that?
The 1.5%.
Yeah.
This is a subset of subset. Most businesses think about their customers in broad categories. Hey, we serve entrepreneurs. We help business owners. We help sell this particular good for this one type of a person. So, and that's what I like to refer to, Mushka. That's 6-figure thinking. So that's the DNA thinking of a 6-figure business owner, not an 8-figure DNA thinking. And so let me just tell you the math. And if you might not know, there's a rule called the Pareto principle. And this is where 20% of your customers create 80% of the revenue. True statement. You can take a look at this, go research this, and you're going to find if you're in your business right now, go take a look at where 80% of your revenue comes from. And yes, give or take, it might move a little bit of the percentages, but it's 20% of your revenue is created by, 80% of your revenue is created by a small group, 20% of your clients and your customers. So what we can do is, what's the 1.5% rule? Well, there's actually a Pareto principle of the Pareto principle. So what we can do is we can dive down deeper into this and say, not only if 20% of my clients create this big bulk set of my revenue, 80% of it, what percentage of this 20% create even another chunk? And here's the thing. So the 20% of the 20%, we get down to 1.5% to 2% of your customers legitimately will create between 55 to 60% of your revenue. Over half the entire set of revenue for your business can come from 1.5 to 2%. And here's the thing that you don't know is it's actually the most profitable bit of revenue as well. So not only is it this unique group that can be housed by this 1.5 to 2% of people, but it often becomes the most profitable. So they're not just good customers. If you think about this, they're literally matched for the business. You can think of them as genetically matched with your customers when we talk about DNA. And this is where they get massive value from the things that you're providing to them, and they help provide massive value back to you. They're willing to pay full price. They're the ones that want to stay forever. We refer to those as they become raving fans, just people that love everything that you do, why you do it, how you do it. If it's products, they're the advocacy for your brand and your business. They refer other people. And so the question is really, if I were to ask everybody out there, is can you describe them so specifically that you could pick them out of a room? Go in there with 1,000 people. How well have you been able to identify not the 20% of your customers, because there's probably enough of those out there, but no, I'm talking the 20% of the 20%. I'm talking about the 1.5 to 2% people that you would love and die for to work with day in and day out. And so I'll just kind of share that because that's one thing that we often don't believe is true, but it is a huge part of the rule to what that is. And so these aren't just the good customers. These are the ones that you're going to love working with. And the challenge is, if you're not able to do this, this means that the expression DNA part of that is not complete with your business.
Sounds like they're your best buyers.
They're your big time best buyers.
Okay, so in the beginning, you promised a 30-second diagnostic. How does someone like me would figure out which strand in your business's DNA is broken?
This is pretty easy. So just follow with me as I look at presenting these to you, and you can think about how this works. Question one is just simply, we talked about clarity, right? As part of the first strand of DNA, is if I called 3 random people on your team right now, and let's say that I were to ask them, what makes you different? How consistent or how different is the answer going to be? Okay, so that's question one. Question two has to do with the expression, okay, or the expression DNA strand, is can your team, and again, whether you're providing a service, whether you sell products, or whether it's a combination, the question is, can your team or those responsible for doing so close those deals or sell those products as effectively as you can? And or does that conversion rate drop when you're not in the room? Okay. So the simple thing is do you feel, and then the other one might be, it might not be you. You might have a star team member. The question is can others do that at the same level as the star team member? And everybody might say, hey, there's difference in the people and the quality. Don't get yourself or try to fool yourself. This is a simple one. It's part of the expression is can the other team members or do other people have the ability to deliver that at the same reason you can? Meaning if you're not in the room, do rates and deals close the same? Or do you have that some kind of a magical secret sauce, which is what I thought was always one of those big things. And again, that's the question. If that's the case, that's part of question 2. Again, can your team close deals as effectively or sell products as effectively as you can? And or do conversion rates drop when you're not there? The third is having to do with results. And this is a little bit different if you think a little bit from an operational, but just think about if you're not around. Before it was in the room, just let's say if you're not around, if you were gone for a week or two, if you were not available for them to reach out to you, would the business grow? Would the business simply be maintained? Or would the business slide back with you not being around? And so that's one of those questions. So if it's a no to question 1, how complete is your clarity? Meaning if I reach out to 3 different people, is there a no maybe to question 2? Meaning how well can others express part of what it is that your business uniquely does for your best clients? And or 3, is there a yes or a no maybe to question 3 is does the business work better without you than it does with you? If there's a no in any one of those, you can understand a no while probably you're feeling a little stuck right now.
So apparently that particular strand would be broken. That's what I understand.
That strand would be broken. You could say maybe it's partially there, maybe it's just incomplete. Would be another way to look
Yeah.
at that as well.
That makes a lot of sense. So, okay, people have tried other frameworks as well, and I'd not like to name those frameworks, but agencies and other frameworks. Why don't those fix this DNA issue?
Good question. A lot of people, when I go to meet with businesses, they kind of ask what it is like that we do that's unique. And I don't want to get into this. Really, we help businesses decode their DNA. But part of the reason is there's companies out there that help businesses scale, like Scalable. You've got things like EOS. You have other great brands like Story Brands, and there's a lot of books that talk about being successful as a business. The challenge is when I started looking at all this, is they all really they really try to treat what I'm going to call the structure. And so what they're doing is they're looking at pieces and parts of this instead of really trying to look at what I'm calling is decoding the business's DNA and kind of extracting to understand really what was and why has the business been founded, what and why has the business been to serve what types of customers. Again, what did they do? Who are their most ideal best buyer customers? And have they tried to understand and decode what they've been doing and how they've been communicating it? Again, think about that. A lot of businesses, instead of trying to decode and understand, what they're looking to do is put things at the top, do more, put more in, put systems in. And so what we find out is a lot of these assume that you already have clear positioning. A lot of them already assume that there's these, and what they do is they think they're going to systemize part of the DNA. But if the DNA is incomplete, no matter what we try to do, we simply are putting like a loud horn, or we're amplifying the parts that are not already brought together because they're not decoding it. They're just trying to put more on top of something that kind of is already broken. So it doesn't mean it actually gets fixed. You just end up with a slightly bigger part of the broken system. So again, a lot of these things are great, but there still is this need to understand and decode your DNA. So you get templates for understanding and deciding who you're talking to for part of your messaging. But the question is if you haven't decoded who your ideal client is again, then you're finding that same message, even though you're going to go tell the story, might be going to the wrong people. And at the end, you brought this up too, is a lot of people have tried to fix this, Mushka. Let's go hire an agency. You think about marketing.
Right.
Let's go do paid ads.
Yeah.
We know that paid ads work. True. We know that, hey, we need to do more on social media. And as I've talked with business owners, I've heard this time and time again, is they'll tell me, like, when I've talked with these different groups, it's like, they don't seem to get me. They don't seem to get what we do. They can't. You think about this. It's a hard one. How do you extract your magic? Well, it's not extracting your magic. It's decoding your DNA, because once we decode your DNA, that is what is making up the magic. And now once we know that, then we can put and say that the marketing group would now be able to take that context and do a better job at communicating it. if we're going to do a paid ad. We'll now know from what exact angle, depending on who that 1.5% best buyer is, what words, what things they're wanting to hear in order to get more of those right customers in the door, etc. And so to me, coming back is, again, when you end up trying to find these one or twos or these threes things, you've all done this. We've all done this. We've done this. This is what I went through, over year after year after year, trying to solve these problems, and they all give you the bump. The challenge is you're still trying to really just fill a leaky bucket because you haven't been able to bring together and decode the DNA. So what they're doing is, I like to call this, is that they're handing you pieces of the puzzle, but unfortunately, nobody has given you the picture to the box top. So you end up with a lot of pieces. You're just not quite sure how they all get to go together in the right way.
That makes actually a lot of sense. So I would want to know that if there's someone out there who's been listening to us for the last 20 minutes, they get the framework, they have diagnosed which strand is broken, what do they do now?
Good question. I like to say there's always three options anybody can take. First, take a look and understand that you can go do more research on how you can define the three things that will help you decode your DNA. So you can go, what I would like to say is, the first thing is you can just go back to the grind and do nothing. Hope something's going to click. 12 months later, you're going to still find yourself working 60, 70 hours a week. And revenue still seems like it's going up and down, and you're still going to be the bottleneck in the business. And here's the question to this one. This is a tough one, man. And this is what I talked about. One of my ahas is, my wife had asked me this. You can state that your wife probably is still, or your husband's still asking you, like, how's things at work? Because they're not even asking you, because you're just like, we know where things are at. They're kind of where they were last month. They were last year, etc. So choice one is do nothing. Choice two is a little bit different. This is just do it yourself. This is where you can take the parts I've shared and try to dig into it. Go look. There's several books out there that talk about ways of clarifying your message. You can go and try to find a few things that talk about how you can best identify who your client is and why, and what you might do to connect with them better. You can go do the same thing and look at why and what you can do to potentially solve the overwhelm that you might be feeling with the operations. But in essence, you can go do that, but it's what took me 14 years to figure it out. All while trying to work through the same demands of working 50, 60, 70 and longer weeks, and go do it yourself. So that's fine. That's the option two. The third is, hey, let's see if we can help you diagnose your DNA. Let's help us decode that. Book a 45-minute call. And what we can do is we have a simple series of about 15 questions. We can look at what that is and help you just build a roadmap on where you're at, which part of the DNA we think we can leverage most for you that would help you with the best return on your next 3 months worth of time, et cetera. And we can look at how we help complete those, put those together, what it might look in order to help you facilitate that roadmap. And let's save you the 14 years. Let's save you the 2 years. Let's save you the next 6 months in order to do so, and work together and see what we can do to help you put that DNA into place in your business. Mushka, you and I, we talk about this frequently, is that when we come into a business, what we hear most from them is they're like, boy, one is we get complete clarity that we've never had before. Two is usually, in addition to this, there's this strategy that's built, because once you understand the strands of your DNA, it's a lot easier, and you can more quickly begin to identify the simple wins that you can put together. So they talk about the strategy, and we talk about mining more gold out of what you already have. And a lot of business owners, when I talk about growing or scaling a business, they worry that means more time. I don't have more time in my day. It means it's going to cost me more. I need more people, and I need more processes. And the thing that we very specifically recommend and say is, no, this is not changing anything. It's not changing your team. It's not changing your systems, because most people, once we begin to identify your DNA and the strands, we find that we can extract more gold out of what you're already doing, and it becomes a lot easier. So it's a big deal. We know that with several companies and customers, when we've done this with the current tools, their current audience, their current crowds, their current product lineups, their current services, that we've seen drastic increases. Again, this is not stating that this happens for everybody, but in general, we've seen groups like we mentioned here with Samantha and her success. We see that quite consistently. One, we knew that their group, they had great products that they were a manufacturer of as well. And as they were selling those, we knew that within the first 3 months, they were able to add another $250,000 to their revenue stream by us helping them decode what it was that they did unique, who their best clients were, how to communicate that with inside of their current ecosystem. And so these are the types of things that we do over and over as we've connected with businesses. But let's connect. There's nothing you're going to lose out besides a little bit of clarity. You'll walk away with the plan, a little bit more of a clear roadmap. And ideally, if it's something that we can help you out with, we would love to, put some things together and start the path and the journey.
Okay, so if someone decides to take that call, what does like look after those 90 days?
Good question. So after the 90 days, well, what I would love to say is in simple, what we're going to find out is that the business is going to be, you're going to have very distinct clarity on the 3 different strands of DNA, which one of your strand or strands might have missing pieces or could better be decoded. And then with those, what type of actions are going to be the absolute most impactful in order to begin your journey to break through that current ceiling. So this is, again, we find that most business owners think it's because they're broken or part of their business is broken. And the amazing thing is that's not true. We all are doing the best that we know how to do with the best of what we've been given. And so it's not because you're broken, and it's not because the business itself is broken, but what we have found is that what you've inherited or what you are currently working with is incomplete. And so the DNA has not been defined. And unlike the DNA you're born with, the DNA that you have for a business, you can enhance it. So it doesn't mean that you're stuck or fixed with that. You can go ahead and move forward past that. And you're going to be able to find that you'll be able to have a smile. You're going to be able to have the conversations with your friends and your family about having a much clearer strategy, much clearer day-to-day tasks. Life becomes easier, business becomes easier, processes become easier. And that's really kind of where we end up with.
Okay. This has been quite interesting. It has been quite enlightening as well. Any final words that you'd want to give us? Final piece of wise advice.
Yeah, this is going to be more from a thought leadership perspective. And let me just ask a question to everybody. My hope would be is that everybody can ask themselves right now, what would be something that you can do personally that will increase your willingness to become, again, a student of your future self. This sounds odd, but I just wanted to share that one of the most important things for the businesses that continue to be the most successful is that you find those at the head of those businesses have began to learn that they need to become, again, students of where they are wanting them and or their businesses to obtain success at. And so I'm going to share that, where are you and what is your willingness to become a student of where you want your business to be? I'll just simply ask that question and say, hey, if that's something you're willing to do, to say, hey, I feel like I'm willing to listen, to learn, because if I can learn what's possible or the few small things that I can, navigate or decode in my business, you will find that tomorrow, you will find that next week, you will find that next month, you will be more successful. And I want to be cautious that it doesn't always mean that it's less time tomorrow or less time next week. Ideally, that is the goal. But you will find that you will begin to see with clarity. You'll begin to decode the path and the journey that you're on and your most impactful next steps that will help you on the journey to ideally where you want to be. So I'll just ask that question and leave that as a last thought is, hey, are you prepared to become a student of your future self? If so, we would love to work with you. Mushka, you and I know that when we work with businesses, we're not a fix-it business. We don't want to fix a person that feels like they're in dire need of having something fixed. Does this work for them? Sure, it does. We really feel that we want to have and help people and brands accelerate what they believe and know is possible. But for some reason, they know they haven't been able to tap into this. A lot of our customers and clients say people love what we have. They have raving fans. People tell them that their services they provide are amazing. People say that the products that they sell are different and better than anything else. But what they tell us is they, for some reason, don't have stacks of people lined up at the door. And so they know that they've kind of got this amazing opportunity in front of them. But again, they're needing help decode the different strands, clarity of what they do, how that works with their 1.5% to 2% best buyers, and building the roadmap on how we communicate that, and then building consistent foundational things to help them, build this into the business. So clarity, if you think about getting rid of the message mayhem. 2 is looking at how we can take to enhance and make sure that we communicate things more consistently. And the third thing is we're, to overcome that revenue roller coaster in the middle, which is tending to what happens, we can get rid of that. And then the third, we can get rid of the operational overwhelm in the business by helping them build systems and pieces as foundation that work whether or not they're there. But those two roadmap pieces get brought together in the DNA in a way that connects everything and it stays connected as they grow business.
Nathan, this was incredible. As always. So I understand all the different strands of DNA and where my business could be broken and how it could be fixed without me adding more hours or more team members or more products to my lineup. I would just want to tell people to go subscribe, comment, share, and like, and subscribe to our channel. And apart from that, the link is in the bio for Instagram, and the link is in the description for YouTube. Please go book that call. It's free. Come talk to Nathan. Get the diagnostics. Know which strand might be broken for your business.
Wonderful. Thank you. And we appreciate it. Yeah. Like, subscribe, and comment. We want to hear where you're at.
And
ask
share
us questions. Let us know.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Mushka. Appreciate it. It's been
You're
fun being with
welcome.
you today.
As always. Amazing. Bye.